So we'll begin with this verse from the Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela. Shrutir Mata Prishtha Dishati Bhavad Aradhana Vidhim Yatha Matur Vani Smritirapi Tatha Vakti Bhagini Puranadya Yeva Sahajaniha Vaste Tad Anuga Atha Satyam Gyatam Murahara Bhavaneva Sharanam. Srila Prabhupada doesn't say which particular Vedic text it is from. The purport is very one-line purport, simple. This quotation from the Vedic literature was spoken to the Lord by great sages. So which particular location, what, not yet clear. But it's a very interesting verse. The English translation as follows. When the mother Vedas, Shruti, is questioned as to whom to worship, she says that you are the only Lord and worshipable object. So, Vedas are seen as the mother. Similarly, the corollaries of the Shruti Shastras, the Smriti Shastras, give the same instructions just like sisters. So, there is original Veda, the mother, her offspring, that is, she's our mother, so the offsprings are also like our sisters. So, Shruti Smriti, they say, same instruction. And the Puranas are compared with the brothers. So the brothers, the Puranas which are like brothers, follow in the footsteps of their mother. O enemy of the demon Mura. So we have the name Murari, that is Krishna. The conclusion is that you are the only shelter. Now I have understood this in truth. So on this Gaur Purnima of 2020, ISKCON, which is a wonderful offering of Srila Prabhupada, in continuation of Mahaprabhu's advent and his activities, and we who consider ourselves the followers of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we need to understand who Mahaprabhu is, why did he come, and what exactly does Mahaprabhu's movement offer to us and the world. My presentation for the next 45 minutes or so is based on the book Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. Srila Prabhupada wrote this book as a kind of a parallel to the Krishna book. Krishna book is Prabhupada's fear as well as his joy. Why fear? Because he was afraid he might not stay to finish all 12 cantos. And therefore, he stopped Srimad Bhagavatam translation midway, finished Krishna book, and then similarly he stopped Bhagavatam again some time and gave the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. And then, of course, in 18 months, he finished 17 books of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So, it's humanly impossible to even think. Like all of Prabhupada's books are just on his left side. We have the 18 books of the Bhagavatam, 9 books of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and then teachings of Lord Chaitanya, nectar of instruction, nectar of devotion. Interestingly, in 67, that means precisely a year after Prabhupada had experienced his first entry into American society, staying with the Agarwals in Butler, Pennsylvania, and then having a chance to come to New York. And he began talking on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes. Now, you can imagine the people who would be coming there, they are just interested people or curious people. In India, if somebody is interested, well, they at least know what japa is, they know what japamala is, they know what a temple is, they know what a murti is, they know what charanamrit is. Here, we have the counterculture, people who were rebelling against the prevalent norms of American society, everything, habits, eating pattern, living pattern, having any ambition in life. Then the very name is counterculture. They didn't want to do anything with the prevalent existing culture. And here we have Prabhupada in 1967 talking about Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He says that Chaitanya Charitamrita, I think Chaitanya Maharaj, he also mentioned this point. Chaitanya means, Prabhupada says, living force. Charita means character or activities. And Amrita means immortal. So, this book, Teaching of Lord Chaitanya, it has all the 5 lectures Prabhupada gave summarized as an introduction. It's quite a lengthy introduction. So Prabhupada says there that Mahaprabhu can be understood, or the book Chaitanya Charitamrita can be understood as character of the living force in immortality. And the first time I read it, it didn't make any sense to me. I said, character of the living force in immortality? I mean, we have Mahaprabhu's pastimes of, Mahaprabhu's devotees taking prasad or chanting or dancing. These are all relatable activities. But what about this character of the living force in immortality? So I guess Maharaj kind of reminded that we have to read Chaitanya Charitamrita. When he said, how many of you have read? I raised my hand halfway because this must be 91 or 92, and I was assigned, I just joined the ashram a year and a half ago, and I was assigned to the Hare Krishna Medicos ambulance which would go to different parts of Mumbai. And that was the time when I said that, I don't know who inspired me, memories fade away, that cover to cover, you have to read Chaitanya Charitamrita. At that time, the 17 volumes one was available. And I remember I was working in a company and Mahaprabhu had a set. And it was Sachidanand Prabhu who told that Mahaprabhu likes to give this Bhagavatam set or a Chaitanya Charitamrita set to young people. You'll get it at student's price. I said, good. I checked my salary, 1 month's salary, and I could get both practically. So the 40 book Srimad Bhagavatam set and the 17 volume Chaitanya Charitamrita set. So that was the one I got with me in the ashram. I took permission that, am I allowed to keep my own books? And I said, all right, no problem. So practically in a haste, practically just to notch those boxes that, okay, Adi Lila over, Madhya Lila over, Antya Lila over. What stuck in my memory is in the Adi Lila, there is a 14-page purport. One purport. And I said, how can, I mean, how can someone write so much about, and the verse is simple, that Sankarshan is not a jiva. Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, Aniruddha. So the Sankarshan is not a jiva. I said, so. But later you come to understand that of the four, Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, it is Dvitiya Sankarshan who becomes the cause for the material manifestation, and Shankaracharya, in his Chariraka Bhashya, he does some tweaking in the code there so as to make people feel as if this Sankarshan, the sum total of all jivas, is what we have here. And then later, when in some discussion, I understood, oh my goodness. So that's what the Mayavadis feel, that there is nothing like you are separate from me. We are all together. And somehow we feel that separation, or we feel that you and me are different. And so you do your japa, tapa, kriya, everything, and then become one again, and that's bliss. So, of course, many times we read Prabhupada's books and our complaints are either I didn't relish it, or either I don't remember it, or either I can't repeat it. Srila Prabhupada was asked by Pradyumna Prabhu, what if we preach Mahaprabhu's message and there is no response? People don't come. We chant in Harinam. Nobody takes care. We give a book. Maybe few people take a book, but they don't read it. Or we have a temple and nobody comes. So Prabhupada said, do it to please Krishna. We do it because Krishna has ordered. We preach because Mahaprabhu has ordered. And that was a very deep understanding. So, Srila Prabhupada gives one solid foundational kind of an understanding that what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught is a practical application of Krishna's teachings in the Bhagavad Gita. Now the Bhagavad Gita also is a dense literature. It's not like easy. There are no stories in the Bhagavad Gita. So what are the practical, what exactly did Krishna teach? So I just thought, just take one verse. Manmana bhava mad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. 4 things. Mat mana bhava. Krishna is saying, keep your mind, mat in me, your mind, bhava, keep your mind in me. Mad bhakta, straight, simple, become my devotee. Madhyaji, offer your sacrifices to me. And mam namaskuru, offer pranam to me. Come to my temple, offer pranam. We see that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his whole life, but from the point of his accepting a spiritual master, that is the beginning point when he started showing his role as a devotee. Before that, he was a most arrogant scholar, very stubborn, very proud. If we understand that whatever Krishna does is with a reason, why did he show this kind of pride? Just so that he can relinquish it when he meets his Guru. We find Srila Prabhupada saying that when my Guru started arguing with my arguments, I was very happy to be defeated. in today's age, they say that a beggar also is proud of his penny. It's very difficult for someone to give. You can give your possessions, they're also difficult. But it is possible. You can give some assets, you can give money, you can give landed property. But to give your ego to someone else's opinion and say that from today I shall obey only you, that's very difficult. I think it was the disappearance day of Ishwar Puri few weeks ago. His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj was giving a class in Shridham Mayapur. So Mahaprabhu goes to Gaya on the pretext of offering a Shraddha for his Shraddha Tarpan ceremony for his father. And on the return journey, he meets Ishwar Puri. He says, "Please accept me as your disciple." Ishwar Puri says, "Accept you as a disciple, I give you my very life." Because Ishwar Puri is taking the mood of a devotee. And here God is telling that, no, treat me like a disciple. So a very small incident, Ishwar Puri wrote a passage describing Krishna's Leelas. And he says, "Nimai Pandit, you are a Pandit. Especially you are a grammarian. You are an expert in grammar. Could you check whether this particular passage is suitable or not?" And Mahaprabhu said, "Whatever a pure devotee of Krishna says is perfect." Ishwar Puri says, "I agree, but still have a look." So Mahaprabhu takes a look at it. And the next day he says, in all honesty, in this particular passage, this particular grammar rule should be used instead of the one you have used. And Ishwar Puri takes a look at his passage and says, "What I have written is perfect." And my Pandit says, "Yes, what you have written is perfect." This is like a small blip in this whole luminous Chaitanya Charitamrita sky. But this one small thing is very important. It shows how a disciple has to surrender and how Mahaprabhu is showing with his own example. If we have to surrender unto Krishna, so does Krishna control us? Does Krishna manage things here? So the next point in Prabhupada's giving a nice little summary of Mahaprabhu's teachings, he says Krishna is always in control, either directly or indirectly. Krishna's direct control is only seen in the spiritual realm. And his indirect control is seen in this material world where you, me, all of us here, we actually don't want to see Krishna as a controller. In fact, we don't want to see anybody as a controller. In fact, we like to see very much ourselves as a controller. And people say, "Who, me? I want to control the whole world? Impossible. I can't control my home, I can't control my job, I can't control my body." That's a fact. But what is the deepest seated desire down? Now, this is something which we all have to honestly look at ourselves. It's only when you read Prabhupada's books you understand that when an impersonalist person or an impersonalist teacher says, "You follow my path and you can become God," it is that ambition which is being fanned slowly. Prabhupada says this fellow cannot become success in this material world. He cannot become a Tehsildar, or he cannot become a MLA, he cannot become an MP, or he cannot become a PM or whatever, He cannot become a CEO of something. He says, why not become God? So this is the highest ambition of a lunatic. It's madness. You cannot become that. But this is what impersonalism is. This is what Mayavad really is. I attended a small seminar given by Rabindra Swarup Prabhu about Mayavad and impersonalism. So in the beginning, he gave a passage, small half A4 size, and the class was told to read it. And he said, I'll ask questions, read carefully. And he said, how many of you understood it? Be honest. Nobody raised their hand because actually it was very dense. He said, good. If you had understood it, you would have become a Mayavadi. Because many things which were stated were contradicted later in the second paragraph. What was said in the second was contradicted in the third one. So I said, okay, at least there is hope. And then he began to say, when in New York, as Prabhupada would say, and Prabhupada's own pranam mantra, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarini. So people could think that, where is this Shunyavad and Mayavad in Paschatya Desh? They're all in India. You go to Rishikesh, you go to South India, and you have these I am God, 1008 Mahamandaleshwar Swamis who are, there's so much competition for godhood. And it's hardly seen in the West. So these devotees would discuss among themselves that maybe these fellows gave Prabhupada a bad time in India. They troubled him so much. But he had no institution, he had no money, he had no followers. And now that he has some followers and money and resources in the West, he's saying that, come on, Akraman, hit at them. It's just like a person could have been beaten by 4 thugs and then he gets some money or he gets some followers and he says, if you really want to please me, go and bash them up. And then Rabindra Swarup Prabhu says, we realized, Mayavad, Shunyavad are not, it's not an Indian disease. It is all pervading. And then when you read the Chaitanya Charitamrita, you find Mahaprabhu saying, Jivera Nistara Sutra Kaila Vyas. Just to help a person make sense of what this whole world is. Vyas gave Vedanta Sutra. But Mayavada Bhashya Shunyale Hai Sarvanash. But if you read an understanding where everything is one, we are ultimately God. Bhakti is just like an aid, an instrument, not an eternal occupation. Everything is finished. So, Krishna is in charge here. What is the antidote? The antidote is Sharanagati. My main service is with writing articles, so I always try to see the word origin. Surrender. It is a 16th century word, 1528. Just see how we take these sites as totally reliable information. It's like previously, it came in the papers. So nowadays, it's on a website. But anyway, I agree, I'm a victim to that. So surrender, the word, it has sur, is a French word, and rendre, or a rendre rather, French. It means give up. Give yourself up. And the most interesting point was, it is totally connected with prisoners. That means an enemy who is running away, somebody catches them and says, surrender. I say, all right, give up. And so this is the root mentality. Just like in Sanskrit, everything has a dhatu. there is a bhaj dhatu for bhakti, there is a dhri dhatu for dharma. So when you see, of course, English is not that sophisticated, thank God, but it has those kind of dhatus in the sense of a meaning. So the surrender meaning is totally steeped or rooted in a prisoner. Like you have prisoners whistling and saying, I surrender, or singing songs while surrendering. This surrender is associated with shame, with helplessness, with powerlessness, with fear, with dread, with the torture looming on the horizon. What will this guy do to me now that I have given up my weapons? And this whole package of the word surrender, we use it for Krishna. That when you surrender to Krishna, it means I give up everything. I am lost. There is no enjoyment. There's only punishment. I don't know what will he do to me. It's like somebody says, show me your homework notebook. I said, there's nothing there. All right. Go outside. Stand touching your toes or whatever. So, this is what surrender is. And this is what the first time somebody, I don't think I have even surrendered one bit yet. But the very fact, the very notion of surrender, and there is horror. No. Srila Prabhupada uses very beautiful language there. He says, when Krishna says surrender, sarva dharman parityajya, mamekam sharanam braja, some of us, we try to follow dharma. And we say, oh, shouldn't I do my dharma? Or this is my dharma. How do I adjust my dharma? How do I purify my dharma? And Krishna is saying, don't teach me what your dharma is. I'm saying, give it up. You don't tell me what is the problem with your dharma. Aren't we supposed to do a dharma properly? No. You give up your dharma. You also have a problem with your pap. Oh, I am having such sinful activities. Krishna is saying, don't be attached to the pap, be attached to giving up your dharma. I will cut down your sins. Ma shucha, don't worry. But there is worry, it's a fact. So Mahaprabhu gave through his lifestyle, and then later these ideas were nicely encapsulated by Rupa Goswami in his Shadavidha Sharanagati. So we'll see how one of my endeavors is to Mahaprabhu's teachings, his life's pastimes, but coming through the clear lens of Srila Prabhupada's Leela, because that is much more relatable to us. So the first is accept things favorable. Anukulyasa sankalpa. Whatever is favorable for Krishna Seva, accept it. So we find Prabhupada accepted jet travel, typewriters, modern equipment, everything. The opposite of that, or a corollary to that rather, not opposite, is pratikulyasya vivarjanam. Whatever is not helpful, give it up. To my mind, what Prabhupada gave up was just few notions. A sannyasi should not cross over the ocean. Anyone knows why sannyasis were told not to do that? Why sannyasis are not supposed to cross the ocean? What's the problem? Sorry? That's the point. A sannyasi is expected to do his ritual, his pujas every day without fail. What if you travel to a place where there is no holy river, where there is no water available for your puja, where there is no food available which is pure, and sannyasis have to cook for themselves unless they have an assistant, which may not be the case with everyone. So the rule or regulation was not to curtail the activity of a sannyasi, but to protect him so that he can do his service properly. Shruti Dharma Prabhu is the president of, or was the president of the Manor. Just recently, because of his health situation, he stepped down. He came in touch with a very renowned Bhagavad Kathakar, very nice person. He belongs to the Gujarati community. So the Gujarati community from the UK would regularly invite him. And there is a regular traffic. He goes there, conducts the katha, comes back. So they became acquainted and they started knowing each other's lifestyle. So this teacher said, actually, we bring our own water from India for bathing. We cook our own food with grocery, bhoga, bought from India. So our own cooks, our own grocery, our own people to cook, and everything done as if we are in India. And is there any reason? He says, oh, this is the West. You see cow killing civilization everywhere, and they also know the rules. They say everybody is breaking all these rules. There is so much of impurity. How can we survive? He says, I don't even allow, apart from the Bhagavad Katha people who come, others are not even allowed within 3 feet. What to speak of touching me or shaking hands or whatever. He says, this is how I have maintained my purity over the last 2 decades of coming here. They said, very laudable. And then they started telling stories of Prabhupada going to New York, staying with the hippies. And when they read, when they understood that this is what this Swami did, they said the only conclusion is he's straight from that place. It is just like Krishna coming down and not getting any kind of contamination. So that kind of personality Mahaprabhu sent. And now we have devotees reading these predictions that Mahaprabhu said a Senapati Bhakta would come. Senapati means a commander-in-chief. So, as years go by, as Mahaprabhu's movement also consolidates its position, people will come to know what a great personality Srila Prabhupada is. I was reading one pastime in Mexico where Prabhupada was telling that somehow or other, at the point when you leave your body, you have to live your life in such a way, when you leave, you have to think of Krishna. And interestingly, one old lady said, Swamiji, if it is not possible to think of Krishna, what if we think of you? And Shrutakirti Prabhu and others were there and they were like shocked. What will Prabhupada answer now? And after a moment's reflection, Prabhupada said, that's all right. Of course, he always downplayed that. He never made any big issues out of it. But we understand what Srila Prabhupada's position is. So accept things favorable, reject which are unfavorable. Firmly believe in the Lord's protection. We are talking of what Krishna says, do for me, what Mahaprabhu gave. If Mahaprabhu's life is a practical application, Srila Prabhupada's Leelamrit, Prabhupada's life story, is like a modern day practical application. Mahaprabhu used to travel with a water pot. One assistant would carry that. So, obviously for today's sannyasis, your Mac could be a water pot. During the olden days, battery would be a problem, power would be a problem. So, one day Jayadit Maharaj was here and he had his UPS, unlimited power supply, big, thick, heavy battery contraption. And so we were going from here to Juhu, and so as Raghupati Prabhu was serving him, so Maharaj, anything left? He says, oh, my water pot. I said, there's no water pot here. He says, no, UPS. Take it everywhere you go. So, after 2 heart attacks, Prabhupada could have written that I was so miserable, why this happened to me? But he said, no, there must be some reason. And then Krishna showed how he was taking charge of the entire boat. Krishna with all his incarnations, all his expansions were there to help him in his mission. There is another story Prabhupada was telling Tamal Krishna Maharaj that for a few months while staying in New York's Bowery side, every day he used to go and think, where could I get people? How do I meet people? And nowadays, if you go to Bowery, it's a completely gentrified area. Tall condominiums and swanky glass shops and everything. Previously, 45 years ago, one Prabhupada disciple who left his body last year, Shravanananda Prabhu, he said he's from Long Island, and Long Island is a bit nice upper class area for most part. He said, I had never ever visited the Bowery. Now check it in your own life. Aren't there some parts of Mumbai which we only have heard and never gone there? So this happens in every city. So in one particular dead end, that means there's a gully, there's a lane, and there is nothing after that. You should come back. So Prabhupada said, sometimes I used to go there and just walk back. And he said, really? Prabhupada said, what happened? There was a mad fellow with a telescopic rifle. And he was known to shoot at targets just for the sake of fun. And Prabhupada said, I don't know how Krishna protected me. So, it's not like Prabhupada's chart, his whole journey was a success charted all the way. It's like you go to a package tour and they say, tomorrow you'll go here, tomorrow you'll see this, then you'll go here, there is some adventure sports. This mission was not like that. So one day in a discussion, Prabhupada said, while preaching, sometimes I would not know whether to turn right or left. But just to take a chance. Next, Mahaprabhu said, to feel exclusively dependent on the mercy of the Lord. Again, I have a small Jayadvaita Maharaj statement. He said, this feeling of exclusively dependent on Krishna is something which I used to see in Srila Prabhupada all the time. And I could see that gave his mind a kind of an attractive feature. And he said, I want that kind of a mindset. That is a goal of my life. To be always dependent on the mercy of Krishna. Lastly, it is having no interest separate from Krishna. Just see how beautifully Mahaprabhu has given, Rupa Goswami has compiled it, but Mahaprabhu has given this idea. This is what Sharanagati is. Devotees were in the Kumbh Mela, they saw an elephant procession, all these Mahamandarishivars were going on an elephant procession, and they said, Srila Prabhupada, next time in the Kumbh Mela, can we also have an elephant procession? I said, why not? We'll put you up there. I said, no. We'll have Radha Krishna up there and I'll walk below. So even when this never happened, but even when things were at a notional level, Srila Prabhupada never had any interest separate from the interest of Krishna. If something has to be made famous, it has to be Krishna. So, this is how the Shadavidha Sharanagati is given by Mahaprabhu. Then Srila Prabhupada takes on another important feature of Mahaprabhu's teachings. This is the famous Aradhya Bhagavan verse. The process Mahaprabhu recommends is, keep Krishna as the only worshipable Lord. Now sometimes the Hindu mentality or the Indian mentality, we feel, if I worship him, will he not become angry? Yeah, mostly we feel spirituality or religion is more like a super mall. If you go to GV, after you pass Kandivli, on your left, I won't take the name, but there is such kind of a super mall where all your personalities are there. There is scope for any additions also. And the whole understanding is, why not? The more the merrier. Are we Vaishnavas narrow-minded? or practically fools to say something like that only worship. Or sometimes people say, oh, because you read the Bhagavad Gita, therefore you are saying only Krishna. No, it has nothing to do with this kind of narrow-minded thoughts. While preparing for this presentation, I just went through the Krishna book, 90 chapters. Now, this is a kind of a observation. It's not a very well-researched kind of a thing, but I'm just offering it. Who are the personalities which feature in the 90 chapters of Krishna book? And how Krishna has asserted his supremacy or his prowess or his power over them. First are the demon class. They are the villains. They are bound to be defeated, right? They might be wizards, they might be flying, or they might be non-flying, they could be invisible, they could be in gender, whichever, whatever it is. Demons, no mercy. Everybody is finished. Demons in Vrindavan, finished without any weapons. As Gaurang Prabhu quoted the Chaitanya Bhagavatashtaka by Vishwanath Chakravartipad. And what things Krishna used to kill the Vrindavan demons? Lips or fists or hand, or sometimes just entry into their body, expansion, so many things. Demons outside Vrindavan, that's a different treatment. One of his prime recruiting agent was Jarasandha. He would bring people from all walks of life, not people, basically demons, and they would all be thoroughly dealt with on the outskirts of Mathura. Then Krishna would catch Jarasandha, Balram would catch Jarasandha, and Krishna would say, leave him. And he said, leave him? Why? He says, leave him. And he would go, and he would again have a recruitment drive, take more people. So with demons, Krishna's supremacy, understandable. Then comes some of the most known and formidable personalities who have something to do with universal management. First one is Brahma himself. He becomes bewildered. Indra, he becomes bewildered. You know anybody else? Who? Cupid. Cupid, which Lila is that? No, we'll stick to Krishna book only. Varuna is not a villain. He's a demigod. In a sense, he's a big boss of certain elements, and the mistake was committed by one of his servants. Who else? Well, I am treating these Mayavadis have these 5 Panchopasana. I am treating all of them together. One is Vishnu, other is Lord Shiva's family. Lord Shiva, his wife Durga, his son Ganesh, and his brother Kartikeya. And a impersonal Vishnu, Prabhupada says, is added. These are the Panchopasana. So Shiva is, Lord Shankara comes in the Banasur episode. Durga Devi, she comes as one of her ghastly manifestations. Then Kotara, she comes as Kotara. Ganesh also comes in the fight. Not a major role, but at least the mention is he came and he left. Kartikeya also. Vishnu, how does Krishna show that even Vishnu also is one aspect of his personality? When Lord Brahma is bewildered, all the calves and the coward boys, Krishna says they're all Vishnus. Not a mirror reflection, but individual Vishnus. So millions and millions of Vishnus came forth. So, I also found Yamaraj even there. Yamaraj has his place, Sanyamani. And Krishna comes there. Now, Sanyamani is a busy place. Pots boiling, oil, and some people inside. And the torture devices and everything. It's a very busy place. Krishna just blows his conch shell and the furnace becomes cold. Suddenly there is a lockdown in the sense uh, everything, business closed, all prisoners free. So understand just from the 90 chapters of Krishna book that all those whom you think as great, and of course in the Bhagavatam, 9 cantos you can have Prachetas, you can have Dhruva, you can have Prahlad, you can have Bhishma, Kunti, Pandavas, you name it. They all show their understanding that Krishna alone is worshipable. There is a notion that at least be in good company. Have you heard of it? Do what the majority does. So if you take majority as this material world majority, then this is a lunatic asylum, then you don't need to think about that. But if you think, when we say Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda, when you say that majority, they all worship Krishna. So therefore, Aradhya Bhagwan, Mahaprabhu has said, only Krishna. It's not our topic today as to how that is not considered enmity towards other aspects of Godhead, but I will leave it to those who are inquisitive to read Prabhupada's books for that. Then, Tad Dhama Vrindavanam. This Aradhya word, Aradhyo Bhagwan Brajesha Tanaya, Tad Dhama Vrindavanam, this Aradhya is also applicable to Vrindavan. His dham also is equally worshipable. Mahaprabhu, as soon as he took sannyas, he ran away. He wanted to go to Vrindavan. That's what the main purpose why he came here. Nityananda Prabhu tricked him. So he stayed back. Then he went to South India. Then he did that preaching. And one day he tells Ramananda Rai and Sarvam Bhattacharya, I have to go to Vrindavan. So they said, well, it's Rath Yatra now. Rath Yatra is Ashad Shuddha Dvitiya. So at least wait till Kartik. So Kartik came, he says, I should go now. It's cold. Wait till Dola Yatra. But Dola Yatra, now the devotees are coming from Bengal. So 2 years passed like that. And one day Mahaprabhu is saying, I'm going tomorrow. Now they know that they have used so many dilatory tactics. Now it is not feasible. So at least take someone with you. And Mahaprabhu said, all right. That someone will not be those who are here. I want a new guy. Why is that? He said, because anyone I choose, others will feel unhappy. So Ballabhadra Bhattacharya is chosen, one more assistant is chosen, and that's how Mahaprabhu goes. The moment he leaves the precincts of Puri, he's happy. He enters the Jharikhanda forest, he's 1,000 times happy. He approached Mathura district, he's hundreds and thousands of times happy. And he enters Vrindavan forests, he is unlimitedly happy. So that is how Mahaprabhu said, Dham Vrindavan is worshipable. Ramya Kachid Upasana Vrajavadu Vargena Va Kalpita. What is a good mode of worship? Here, mode of worship means, what is my narrative? What is the script inside? People use this kind of language nowadays, isn't it? It's a new age language for understanding spirituality. What is the script inside? The script inside is, we have to worship like the gopis. And just see Prabhupada's words here. They simply loved Krishna without any motive for material or spiritual gain. This thing really intrigued me. Even spiritual gain? We come for at least spiritual gain, right? I mean, even material gain is not discounted. Artharthi is a valid concern for coming to Krishna. Now you understand why the gopis are so exalted. Any material or any spiritual gain is not a consideration. This is that simple love. I used to think that gopis are 5,000 years old. Who knows whether that's history or not? Mahaprabhu is 500 years old and it is still, yes, no, maybe. That's why you find in Chaitanya Charitamrita, some of the purports are so unusual. On the 24 Parganas to something railway line, narrow gauge, you get down at this station. Half a furlong there is a banyan tree. Next to it is a well. After that is a temple, which is run by the descendants of this particular personality still now. And devotees who were composing the Chaitanya Charitamrita, they would say, this is not a purport. Prabhupada said, no. By Guru Maharaj sent, Brahmachari dispatched the Brahmachari parties. They would go and check. Sometimes some things would be checked from the Bombay Gazette. If you reach Chaitanya, you learn this Bombay. That time Bombay meant Bombay Presidency, which meant Maharashtra, Goa, Gujarat up to Karachi. That was all Bombay. And some of the word, it's in the official Gazette, means it is official. So Prabhupada said, we want to tell the world that Mahaprabhu is not an imaginary figure. Of course, we find, I felt especially bad when we go to Godruma Dweep, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's home, and the pride was to show that narrow gauge railway, isn't it? That this railway was built by the British for our Thakur Bhaktivinoda. He was such an important person for them. Today they removed it. Why? Because of no use. No use, but it has so much of historical value. If you go to the UK, they find that this author lived in this small house from 1828 to 1842. It's still preserved there. Sadly, that sense is lacking here. Anyway, so Gopis Upasana is simply love Krishna without any motive for material or spiritual gain. And this whole thing is guided by Srimad Bhagavatam, which Prabhupada says, the spotless nourishment of transcendental knowledge. Mahaprabhu concludes, the highest goal therefore is, in human life, to develop unalloyed love for Krishna. I'll just take 2 more minutes to conclude the whole thing. So if Chaitanya is living force, Amrita is immortality, Srila Prabhupada in this lectures telling about Lord Chaitanya's teachings, he says, where is this immortality? Look around, you will find living force. You are a living force, somebody living force. Even the smallest organism, if you're writing late at night and you see a small insect coming on your paper, I always like to tell this story. One day I was having a tough time translating 11th canto, not very late at night, must be about 9:30, 9:45. And this small insect landed on the paper, so I just had to do something. So I took my ballpoint pen and poked him, not very tightly, but a little bit. And he stopped, as if dead on tracks. And I said, do you think I don't understand what you are doing? I fully understand. You are just faking death. So I tried to, but he didn't move. He clung onto the paper. I don't know what kind of fibers he found. So I had this incident for almost 10 minutes. It refreshed me up. And I was thinking, and then I remembered one lecture by Sripad Swarup Damodar Maharaj, Sripad Maharaj. He said, such a small organism, what could be the size of the brain? Think about it. They say that a blue sperm whale, his heart is the size of a small car. Of course, if it is a 30-foot long organism, that much heart is needed. But the brain is very small. Our brains, human brains, are also not that big compared to the body. They're very powerful. So what kind of a mind this small organism has? What kind of a... But it is a living force. Of course, it is not showing any signs of immortality. How many of you would like to be immortal in this material world? No? No, then you are in the sane category of people. Not immortal, but a few days ago, a popular UK newspaper said it is possible to live up to 100 by the year 2075. Now, I don't know, I certainly don't wish to stay that long. I don't know any of us would stay that long, but most of them are saying so. This is typical of newspapers. They put some discovery, something by 2075. This has to be there, and then the columnist says, "Well, some questions are still unanswered. The vital ones are always unanswered." What is more interesting is the reader response. A reader is saying, "My mom just left her body. She was 93. From age 81 till 93, she was completely immobile and she was in dementia. So, who wants to stay for the last 20, 30, 40 years of your life where you just eat your food through a straw? You can't eat you can't eat solid food. Most of your friends are dead because you are to be blamed. You lived that long. And if you die early, you are in a bad stage of separation. All my friends are here and I'm leaving." So almost 60% of the letters were saying, please try to understand. If you leave early, it is sorrow. If you stay long, it is sorrow. When Prabhupada disciple said his father and his 4 friends made a pact. They purchased some land. They developed it with their own money. They made it into a golf club. And when they finally paid off the last mortgage, out of 4, 3 were dead. The last one could not play golf. He could not even drive his vehicle now. The driving license thing expired. That means even if you want to, they won't give you a license. You have to have somebody next to you. But still, people today want to be immortal. Of course, there is this fable of 2 people, rogues actually. Thug, you just say thug means cheaters. So one of them goes to a king and says that I can teach your donkey to sing ragas, classical Hindustani ragas. And the friend says, what do you sing? You shut up. So we will teach it. So the king says, really? I will need 10,000 gold coins for that. He says, how long will it take? He says, about 17 years. So the king said, all right, money is not a problem. So when they come back, the next friend says, you will have us both killed. Now you know you can't teach a donkey to sing music. I'm ragas. He said, look, we got the money. So one problem is solved, right? In 17 years, we may die, both of us. Or the donkey may die. Or the king may die. Now this is exactly what, I won't call them scientists, but that's what they claim. So most of the so-called immortality research, read it if you are interested, otherwise take my word for it. 5 articles on the net and all 5 are saying this project could have succeeded, but there is fund shortage. But they all desperately want to become immortal. Here is Mahaprabhu offering immortality. Straight immortality, that's what Prabhupada is saying here. Mahaprabhu is offering you how to become immortal. How? Prabhupada compares Mahaprabhu's process of Achintya Bhedabhed with the Sankhya Yoga process. Everything is synthesized in Mahaprabhu's teachings. And he says, this one and different Achintya Bhedabhed, the Jiva is one with Krishna. Here oneness is in the vision. Different from Krishna for tasting service. We are not different from Krishna so that Krishna becomes eternally the master and we become a slave and we just have a torturous eternal life of pain and misery. No. Krishna fully gives in to somebody who is a surrendered soul. So the surrender of this material world, surrendre, the French word, which means a prisoner being taken alive. And he's like all misery in his mind. Spiritual surrender is just the opposite. It is sweet. It is ecstatic. And Krishna himself gives one to one who has surrendered. So, we fall, we have a tendency to fall. This is the last point. Prabhupada says we have to understand that God has no such tendency. Why is that? Just like the sun always stays above the clouds. So clouds can create a material world. The cloud can cover the sun also. Not because the cloud is great, but we are small. So, we have a tendency to lord it over material nature. That is given full exposure over here. The day, the moment we decide that this is no fun, trying to enjoy separately, neither can I enjoy nor can I actually be happy here. Prabhupada says there, Maya whispers in our ears, don't surrender. Don't surrender. Don't listen to this instruction. And Prabhupada explains why. Then you will be free from my clutches. And if you are free, I can never kick you. I said, why? This is what the Maya's plan is. That don't go, otherwise I cannot kick you. To end, Srila Prabhupada once saw a person going with a fish. Maybe it was in India. And looking at Prabhupada, innocently, he was just having a fish freshly caught. Like to have one? And 2-3 devotees next to Prabhupada were also very startled. And Prabhupada said, no, you enjoy. Now this is more surprising. How can somebody be blessed that you enjoy this fish? Devotees don't eat fish. Prabhupada walked about 10 paces ahead, looked back and said, and suffer. So that is the whole equation. The moment we say, I want to enjoy Maya, there is some enjoyment. Prabhupada said, 10th class enjoyment. Whatever it could be. But the price of that enjoyment is, and suffer. So suffering is not because Krishna wants us to suffer or even we want to suffer. Suffering is simply because we obey Maya and we don't obey Krishna. Enechi Maya nashi bara lagi. Mahaprabhu has come to finish off, destroy this Maya. Maya basically doesn't have any reality. We say, what is the illusion here? Sometimes we say, what is the illusion? The illusion only is that I can be happy having no connection with Krishna. That's the only illusion. Otherwise, there is no other illusion. Krishna is real, his energies are real. We are also real. But in reality, when we become part of Krishna, happily serve him, not only we become happy, we also make others happy. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki.
RG Media YouTube channel. Like, share, subscribe.